someone who's really had a really strong season to start off this year. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of which, we can now go down to our stage because our players are ready, getting set up here. And we've been talking so much about the Lugia dominance, but we will not be seeing Lugia here in this match. Not yet.
Yeah, we'll see plenty of Lugia today without a doubt, but we're going to ease into things here with two kind of ways that players are trying to respond to Lugia. We'll talk about these two players before we get into the decks, but over there on the left, Israel Sosa, a 5-time regional champion. Really, when you think about the West Coast, Israel's one of the first players that comes to mind as just one of the best players from this side of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw Israel play all throughout the last several Pokemon seasons for sure. Last time taking a placement in Salt Lake City, Utah with a Lost Box sort of build of deck. And today we are going to see a sort of variation. So Israel must have been working on it a little bit because we are going to be seeing that Hisuian Gudra in a little Lost Box variation box. I'm so excited.
And his opponent's going to be Makani Tran. And Makani has had a incredible start to the season. He started it off with a top 4 in Baltimore, just about as good as you could do to start the season off. A top 4 finish is pretty strong. And since then, he's had multiple day 2 finishes, including just a top 32 a few weekends ago in Toronto. And he's going to be playing an Arceus V-Star counter deck. And I'm excited to see this in action. It's kind of a strategy that was popularized by Michael Catron at the Toronto Regional Championships, where you've got Flying Pikachu VMAX if you're up against Lugia. You've got Espeon VMAX to counteract things like in the Lugia matchup that Amazing Rare Yveltal, and Drapion V to counter the Mew VMAXs, Empoleon V into the Lost Box matchups. And Empoleon's probably going to be an important card for Makani in this matchup, trying to slow down Israel's Comfeys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm sure both of these players were definitely expecting to see a lot of Lugia today, but it's going to be great to see how this match plays out with two kind of unconventional decks. A little bit of variation here in our first match, but here are our prize cards upside down here for Israel, but we can still tell what's going on here. We see a Goo in there.
Yeah, one Gudra, a Mirage Gate, could be a little awkward, scoop up net. No prizes that are too bad, but honestly, not the best either. A Battle VIP pass in there makes it less likely you'll be able to find one early. And on Makani's side, did prize a Water Energy, does have one more copy though, but that's going to be a important card if he does want to utilize the Empoleon in this matchup. So being down a water already could be a little sketchy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of interesting dynamics, I think, to this matchup. Again, maybe not something either players prepared for, so it's kind of two toolbox decks. So we could see all of the stops pulled out for both of these players here, but we are jumping into our match now. Israel Sosa versus Makani Tran here in our round 3.
And what better way to get the game going for Israel than turn 1 Battle VIP pass? It feels like the format really does revolve around this card at times. The Lugia deck doesn't play it, but when you look at the rest of the decks in the format, like the Mew VMAXs and the Lost Box decks, Battle VIP pass is just everywhere. You can only use it on that first turn, but its effect is so good that it's worth playing in a 4 of variety so that you can get 2 basic Pokemon directly to the bench.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly what we saw there from Israel. Of course, we do see the draw engines here taking a full effect. We see the Comfey in the active position there, as well as the Radiant Greninja already using concealed cards to discard that energy and draw 2 cards as well. So that is the main draw engine here from Israel that we're going to be seeing throughout this match.
Yep, using that Colress's Experiment as well. It's kind of like a Lost Box engine, but instead of using things like the Snorlax or the Kyogre or Amazing Rayquaza, we're going to see those Hisuian Gudra V-Stars, and we start to see the Lost Zone piling up. One card being that Escape Rope going there. Israel did attach a Capture Energy for turn to the Gudra. That is because he does have a switch card in hand already with the Scoop Up Net, and where you see he's playing quickly, he's already churning through these Flower Selectings.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of Flower Selectings happening right now. Comfey's popping off here. I think big Pig Parasol going into the Lost Zone there.
And we see this is already going to be the 4th card into the Lost Zone. And Big Parasol, a card you really don't mind losing in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. So in Israel's deck as well, there is also Cramorant. There's 2 Cramorant in deck for some alternate attackers
Yep.
as well. So that is what the Lost Box is the Lost Zone is contributing to as well. But of course, that Hisuian Gudra being the main attacker here in the deck. So now we're over to Makani here, starting out with a Hisuian Heavy Ball there. Going to be able to, if it's used, look through those prize cards and take out a basic Pokemon that is in there, and then rearrange your prize cards back onto the table.
Yep, no basic Pokemon, so the prizes just get shuffled up and replaced back out. Makani looking for a double turbo energy, I feel like. Using Trinity Charge on the Arceus V-Star in order to power up a potential attacker would be really, really strong. And I'm interested to see what Makani will go for as far as what Pokemon does he want to attack with in this matchup. And it does look like Empoleon is being grabbed to the front right away.
Yeah, most definitely. That Empoleon is super important to be able to shut down those abilities, some of the draw engine for Israel as well. So, of course, coming out there, the beautiful artwork there on the table too. But that is what I'm thinking as well, Chip. What is going to be drawn out here for Makani? There's so many different Pokemon in this deck for Makani, so making these decisions throughout this match is definitely going to be interesting. Of course, that double turbo allowing you to power up the energy that you need from your deck. So if we do see that, that would be pretty major here for Makani. But we are going to see a Marnie, so both players are going to be shuffling their hands, putting it at the bottom of their deck, and then Makani is going to draw 5 cards while Israel draws 4.
And that was a huge Marnie because Israel was already sitting on something like a 7 or 8 card hand, I think. And we see the strategy from Makani as well, just using Air Balloon, get into this Empoleon, and put this in the active. That Emperor Eyes ability will shut off the abilities of the Comfeys and also that Lost Provisions ability of the Cramorant. So it's going to be a question for Israel of how does he deal with this. It's going to mainly be trying to find the Colress's Experiment to fuel the Lost Zone, but I think 2 of them got put to the bottom of the deck off of Makani's Marnie, so that is not something Israel will have to do, and we'll just see the Marnie of his own.
Yeah, definitely being put a little bit on the back foot there, having to jump into how can I get more cards into my hand here? But we are going to see that Cramorant there because that Lost Zone is at 4. We see the Spit Innocently, but we don't see it actually. Yeah,
Israel tried to utilize it and was unable to.
Was not able to because of that Empoleon being in effect, blocking those abilities. So that is, you could just see how major this Empoleon is in this matchup so far.
And this is great for Makani. Gets the Arceus V-Star, slams that V-Star marker right away, and I feel like Water Energy is going to be one of the first grabs right away. Also does need a replacement stadium due to that Temple of Sinnoh being in play. That does mean that that double turbo energy is currently only providing 1 colorless, but with the bump of a stadium, Makani can start swinging with the Swirling Slice as early as this turn.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Starbirth. You know, we haven't seen a lot of Arc decks around lately, so this is sort of a treat for the stream, but that Starbirth ability for the V-Star power ability, of course, you can only use 1 per game, so it is very important to utilize it when you can, but of course, we always mostly see it for that initial setup because you want to put as much pressure on your opponent as possible, so definitely going for those initial setup cards for that Starbirth, searching out any 2 cards in the deck, so powerful for Makani.
Now, after the V-Star power, we do see the replacement stadium. It is that collapsed stadium. There's a Water Energy, but I don't see much else in this hand. Flying Pikachu VMAX, a Boss's Orders, and I like this decision from Makani. Bring up this Gudra and get damage on it before that Rolling Iron gets rolling.
Yep, absolutely, and that is what we're going to see here. Of course, you can move an energy from this Pokemon, so the Empoleon V, onto one of your benched Pokemon. So we are seeing that energy being switched over to the Arceus V-Star on the bench for Makani as well.
And it's an important distinction, too, because a lot of times those type of energy movement effects are optional, but in this case, Empoleon actually says you have to move the energy. So while Makani would have maybe liked to have kept that double turbo onto the Empoleon, was forced to move it down to the Arceus. And this is a good draw for Israel, was able to use Boss's Orders, and now starts getting the flower selectings rolling, trying to fuel that Lost Zone even more.
Yeah, draw engine is back up here, at least for those Comfeys, and of course the Cramorant also being able to be utilized without that Empoleon in the active position as well. So Israel at least has some options here for right now, but having that damage already on the Gudra, never mind.
Yep.
It is gone.
That Moisture Star V-Star power,
Yep.
removing all of the damage from that Gudra, and all Makani can do is attach and pass.
Yeah, that Moisture Star, very prevalent V-Star power there, and that is exactly what we saw. Gudra is now at a clean slate. Makani a little bit on the back foot now, and we're back over to Israel. Free to just run away with this turn. We'll see what can happen here. The escape rope, so Makani switching Pokemon. Of course, it is Makani's choice here, but then Israel also has to switch their Pokemon as well into another Comfey, of course, which is just going to get you some more cards.
And it's an interesting spot. The escape rope does force Israel to now use boss's orders, since Makani was able to just freely send that Empoleon back to the active.
That's true.
But now Israel lost zoning. I believe that was the Drapion V, is now at that 7 cards. Do we see Mirage Gate in the hand yet?
Yeah, that is definitely huge. Mirage Gate allowing you to power up your Pokemon with energy cards of different types here on in any which way that you want. So getting that energy, you know, Hisuian Gudra does take a little bit of power up after several turns, so that is very important to have that Mirage Gate as soon as possible so you can get attacking.
We will see concealed cards, does ditch the capture, drawing 2 for Israel, does find a Mirage Gate. This actually can get Israel the attack this turn, putting energy onto the Comfey and 1 onto the benched Gudra. And then now Espeon V in the active with only 200 hit points actually will be KO'd by this Rolling Iron.
That's
and now
huge.
Hisuian Gudra V-Star will take 80 less damage this turn.
The goo. The goo is in effect here, taking out that Espeon V, taking 2 prize cards there for Israel. Now we're back over to Makani, promoting that Arceus V-Star there into the active position. There is a double turbo, and then I believe this capture energy on there as well. So Trinity Nova can be popped off here for this turn, but there is going to be a slight reduction in the damage because of that double turbo.
It's actually pretty interesting. I'm looking a little bit more through Israel's list here. He's got a kind of weird evolution line, a 2-3 Hisuian Gudra V-Star line, because he really wants to increase his chances to start with the Comfey. But it becomes awkward in spots like this where he actually, I do believe this game prized a Hisuian Gudra V. Makani will launch an attack. It does deal 100 damage thanks to the reduction of Rolling Iron and the reduction of double turbo energy. Now loading up some energies onto Aerodactyl V. And while Aerodactyl V-Star is maybe not something you attack with that often, it can deal a ton of damage. One of the few things that can really hit into the Gudra and still leave relevant damage in play, dealing 240.
Yeah, that's definitely huge, especially when you have matchups where there's some sort of weakness in play to even bigger there as well. So definitely a relevant card in this matchup for sure to have those alternate attackers here. But yeah, Israel's on a bit of an uphill battle because there is so much damage reduction happening from that Hisuian Gudra, but still, if you don't have a backup, what are you supposed to do here? So kind of getting himself out of a pickle here potentially with these turns, but we're just going to see that Rolling Iron again here for 200 damage onto that Arceus V-Star.
And this still sets up for the Cramorant to come in and take a KO. And with the Gudra being reduced by 80, it is still going to be very difficult for Makani to reach for the knockout. Let's see, the Aerodactyl V-Star can do does 240 minus the 80, so it does 160 damage. So that actually leaves you just 10 damage short of picking up the KO on the active.
Oh, that's always unfortunate to see, Chip, when you just miss it by 10 damage. Oh.
So I don't think, Makani doesn't have anything like the Galarian Zigzagoon. I don't actually even see anything like a Choice Belt, so no way to boost the damage output. So Makani, I do believe, is going to miss out on the KO this turn. And that's kind of the goal of these Gudra decks, is just try to keep the Gudra in play as long as possible, make it last for as long as you can. Especially
in this scenario, that is for sure.
Ooh. Interesting. So we're going to see the Aerodactyl V actually coming in as an attack with that Rock Crush, discarding an energy off of Israel's active, trying to buy some time here potentially. Israel needing to find a metal energy, or I guess any energy now at this point would work.
Yeah, which, I mean, Israel does have, again, those Mirage Gates. So if there is any in hand for Israel, easy to kind of get out, or just another energy, I suppose, as well. Yeah, and here we go. This is how the Hisuian Gudra V-Star works. Just outlast your opponent and continuously put that pressure, put those damage counters on, and over to Makani now. forced here to Marnie for the hand. So get some new cards, hopefully something that Makani can work with here. We do see so many variations and attackers on the bench, lots of energy spread out here, but lots of damage counters as well, Chip.
Makani really wanted to find the Aerodactyl V-Star here. If he could, it would allow him to get the KO on this active. Looks like we'll have to go digging, though, as Quickball does fetch the Crobat with its Dark Asset ability, being able to draw more cards.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, that Collapse Stadium is in play, but it allows you to have 4 Pokemon on your bench, so that Crobat is eligible to be played here for Makani. Nothing blocking it to draw into some more cards for the hand. We are going to see the Hyper Potion, so healing 120 damage and getting rid of that double turbo there as well on the Arceus V-Star on bench.
And he is able to find that Aerodactyl
There we
V-Star.
go.
Gudra is going to go down this turn.
Oof.
It does cause Makani to Lost Zone the top 3 cards of his own deck, which can be a little awkward. Oh, and that is a huge hit as well. A double Turbo Energy attach return, Hyper Potion to discard that, heal 120 damage, and that takes Aerodactyl out of range from the Cramorant, KOing it.
That was also 3 Pokemon put into the Lost Zone there for Makani off of that Lost Dive. So I don't even think, I mean, we saw the Luminion and the Pumpkaboo and a Pikachu go down, but nothing I think that's super relevant for this game. So Israel now kind of on the back foot, of course, because as we discussed before, there's no other Gudra V.
No, it's going to be Cramorant to try to take these prizes, and the fact that Makani was able to just remove so much damage with the Hyper Potions makes it so much less likely that Cramorant can pull through. I mean, Makani played both Hyper Potions last turn. That was absolutely massive because now Arceus can't even be KO'd by a Cramorant.
Yeah, so even though we see the Gudra usually with lots of reduction in the damage there, we're seeing Makani with just healing that damage off of their Pokemon as well. So definitely a huge play there for Makani, swinging things around here. And Israel just trying to, we do see 2 Cramorants here now on the bench, of course. Nothing stopping them. Empoleon is not up or anything, so we can see that Spit Innocently for free because of that Lost Provisions ability on the Cramorant. So there is some damage that's going to go down here, 110 onto that Aerodactyl V-Star, but no KO. And now we're back over to Makani, starting off with an Evolution Incense, searching through the deck, of course, just dwindling down here, quick balling that Pikachu VMAX that we see. Now discarding it, being able to draw out another basic Pokemon with the Quick Ball. So just thinning through the deck here for Makani.
Yeah, the name of the game here is thinning for Makani. Pull cards out that you know are not useful in this matchup and try to discard them so that you can just draw more cards and get as much going as possible. And we do see the double Turbo Energy going on to Empoleon. So Makani has the option to retreat this Aerodactyl if he wants to, unless he finds a switch here and just go in with that Swirling Slice and also put up that Emperor Eyes ability.
There we go, and that's exactly what we're going to see, the retreat out of the Aerodactyl V-Star into the Empoleon, putting Israel even into an even more sticky situation because now the abilities are going to be turned off because of that Empoleon V.
Makani's got kind of an interesting choice here. There's not a ton of energy remaining, double turbos that is, in order to attack with the Empoleon. Does choose to move the double turbo to the benched Arceus V-Star. I do believe he's holding on to a Sharon's Care, though. Something that could have theoretically happened is you move double turbo to the damaged Arceus V-Star, pick it up next turn with the Sharon's Care, and now you've got your double turbo back to start attacking
that's
once
spicy,
again.
Chip.
Does choose to
I
move
like
it to
that.
the non-damaged Arceus, though, so maybe just wants to go with that as an attacker in this spot, wants to value having enough energy to attack with that.
Yeah, definitely. Both plays seem like pretty good decisions there for Makani. So looking through the discard there for Makani as well, but we are over here on Israel's turn right now, going into the deck with a Colress's Experiment. As we stated before, this is another huge draw engine for Israel, being able to look at the top 5 cards and put 3 into hand and 2 into the Lost Zone. So Lost Zone decks, lots of cards are being put into the Lost Zone. You lose those cards for the entire match. You can no longer use them. So Israel having to make some difficult decisions, but needing to get what he can, and he can't do it. Makani over on this side now, just popping off here. As we said, thinning is winning here for Makani, going through the deck, getting everything out, and we've seen those beautifully played Marnies as well, putting everything at the bottom and just drawing into whatever Makani needs here. So we're going to see the Quick Ball out. Another Drapion here. So much discard. Ultra Ball to discard 2 cards to grab any Pokemon from the deck as well. That deck is looking thin,
Yeah,
Chip.
Makani needs to be a little careful here. You do need to thin, but you just got to make sure you don't run out of cards. Of course, that is a way you can lose a game of the Pokemon TCG. It's not just about who takes all their prizes first. If you run out of cards, you deck out, you lose the game. So Makani has to be very mindful of that. And I think here, we'll just go with the Sharon's Care. Okay.
Sharon's going to scoop that Arceus V-Star back into hand along with everything that was attached to it as well, which allows Makani to place that air balloon onto the active Empoleon V to be able to retreat it into this Arceus V-Star. That is huge.
Makani at this point is ahead on the prize trade. All he wants to do is try to take a knockout every single turn. By taking this one prize, he now just needs to take 2 more knockouts in order to win the game on one prize Pokemon. We haven't seen another Gudra V from Israel, so it is seeming less likely that that's going to come up if you're from Makani's point of view.
We are going to see the boss's orders there on that Aerodactyl V-Star, so we are going to see the knockouts there because of all those damage counters that were already on the Aerodactyl. So taking 2 prize cards over on Israel's side, but it is now up to Makani to just continuously attack into these 1 prizers, take 2 more to win this game.
Makani going to count the deck, make sure he knows exactly how many resources are still available. Capture Energy in hand could come down to the Empoleon V, allowing it to attack this turn, take the knockout on the Cramorant. Is going to check Israel's discard pile first.
All right, so there we go. Energy is now down on that Empoleon V here. It is a Capture Energy, so of course you can look through your deck and then have to shuffle as well. So just shuffling up the deck here.
And we'll see if he goes with the Empoleon as the attacker. Seems pretty good to try to limit Israel as much as possible, turn off the ability to use that Comfy. But Israel's deck is relatively thin. He's got a decent amount of cards in hand, so maybe you want to send up the Pokemon with the higher HP, like the Arceus V-Star in this spot. We'll see what Makani chooses to do.
So many options here, but we are going to see a Professor's Research, so that counting is definitely coming into action.
1 card left
here
in the deck?
Yeah, that is definitely wild to see. Makani going in, drawing up to 7 cards here from that Professor's Research, and now we're going to see that Empoleon V, of course, having to shift the energy, but now we are down to 1 prize card for Makani. Israel not able to pick up really anything from this hand. It is looking so sticky here, and I think this is about to be a sad ending here, Chip.
I think Israel's win condition here is hoping that Makani does not have access to boss's orders.
Yes.
You use Scoop Up Net, you send up this Gudra. Makani has 1 card left in the deck. Maybe if you can stall for just a turn and find a way to stall something else on the next turn, there is a chance, and especially with that Temple of Sinnoh. But no, Israel will play the Marnie here. This will refresh Makani's deck size, so not going to be worried about decking out at this point anymore. Just sending up the Gudra, though, with the highest amount of hit points, and drawing 5 cards.
All right, let's see what those 5 cards are. Just unfortunately getting into that Gudra V so late because it was locked up in the prize cards, and now it is just back over to Makani.
Makani only needing a boss's orders to close this one out. Would have to bring up the Greninja. Doesn't have a choice belt or anything like that, and yeah, with the double turbo as well, wouldn't be able to knock out Gudra in any way. So he's only got 2 in the list. The question is, how many has he gone through already?
I think it has been 2, Chip. I'm pretty sure Makani potentially has used 2 boss's orders already.
So it might just be a 2-hit KO line, and then hope that Israel can't do enough damage. I think if you're going that route, you want to attack with the Arceus if that's the case.
Yep.
Oh, no, there is a boss left in the deck, but it was still just remaining. Yep. So didn't have it to close it out this turn.
It may have been the 1 card left if that was there, but of course that Marnie spicing things up here, so Makani is still having access to 1 boss, but not there yet. Israel is just going to scoop it up, though, so that is Makani taking that first win here in our set.
A couple of awkward sequence of draws there for Israel. Prizing the Gudra meant he couldn't get the second one up and running, and Makani really was able to capitalize. And I love the fact that from Makani we saw that Empoleon utilized early. Try to slow Israel down, because Israel's turn 1 was so good in that game. He got 4 cards into the Lost Zone, meaning he just needs 1 Flower Selecting and a Colress to get to the 7 needed for the Mirage Gate. But thanks to Makani's use of the Empoleon and use of Marnie at important times, it slowed Israel down, allowed Makani to get back into the game despite going second. and he was able to get the win in game number 1.
Well, not even just shutting off the Mirage Gate too, but shutting off that Cramorant was huge.
Yes.
You know, Israel being able to get some early damage counters could really turn this game around for sure. But yeah, not being able to do that is just even more sticky of a situation for Israel to be in. So that was definitely huge. But of course, Makani only does run one Empoleon in the deck. So there is possibility there isn't access to it if it is in the prize card. So we could see some interesting things play out depending on what is in the deck for both of these players. But I am definitely interested to see. Of course, we did see Israel as well prizing that Goodra, as you said, Chip, only having the 2-3 line definitely is tricky sometimes too, so we'll see if things kind of play out differently here. I think this is a pretty well even matchup though, Chip. What do you think?
I could definitely see it going either way, and I think if Israel had access to the second Goodra, that game would have looked much, much different. He didn't, unfortunately, and again, a Goodra V is going to be in the prizes.
We cursed it.
Yeah, and he doesn't even play anything like that Hisuian Heavy Ball, so he's really going to be leaning onto those Cramorants for the other auxiliary damage. Can also, of course, use Radiant Greninja as a way to get some damage in play. He does play Water Energy, so that is always an option. But yeah, that a couple supporters as well, the Boss and the Chorus, definitely kind of awkward for Israel.
I mean, luckily for Israel, having that Moisture Star, V-Star power ability is huge. Because if you need to use that at a very important time in the match for sure to be able to outlast, especially that's your only Goodra that you have until you take those prize cards. And unfortunately as well for Israel, the Goodra's at the top too. So if he draws his cards, prize cards the most of the time, the way players do, it's not going to be there for a while.
On Makani's side, did prize that one Aerodactyl V-Star. We saw that be pretty important in the last game since it is something that can do so much damage into the damage reduction of the Hisuian Goodra. So that could be problematic for Makani. Nothing else too bad, though, over in those prize cards.
All right, here we go. We are kicking off our game 2 between these players here. Of course, we're doing a best of 3 here, so Israel still has a chance to pick it up in this game, and we are seeing the start here. A great start, at least having those Comfies and a Battle VIP pass, or yeah, it was a Battle VIP pass. All right, cool. So even better here, and now just popping off with this flower selecting, definitely where you want to be, being able to switch out, flower select these, get as many cards into the lost zone as possible and start setting things up. But we are going to see the lost zone, the Hisuian Goodra V-Star is going to hit that lost zone.
Yeah, definitely a little awkward on Israel's side. Is going to choose to hang on to the big Parasol here as well. Does have the switch to go into the second Comfy, which is why we saw that Goodra V-Star hit the lost zone. It's a little awkward for this deck because Israel's not playing any way to find Hisuian Goodra V-Star. There's no Ultra Balls. There's no Evolution Incense. So his only way to get into those is to actually draw into them off of Chorus or off of Flower Selecting, and that is really tough.
Oh my goodness.
Seeing that Radiant Greninja hit the lost zone.
Yeah, just as we're talking about very limited ways to draw into cards, the Radiant Greninja hits the lost zone. So just subtracting another way for Israel to get into cards with that concealed cards ability, which is huge. And now we are over onto Makani's side here, of course, for the turn 1. We saw the double turbo energy come down straight away on that Arceus V. Of course, Makani is going second, so is able to Trinity charge for this turn as well and line up those energies onto another Pokemon. So that is pretty big. And we are seeing an Ultra Ball here to discard 2 cards and draw out any Pokemon from the deck. So also just lining up the bench, getting everything situated, going for a Lumineon, which is going to search out the Marnie from deck, and I believe it is about to be played as well. So both players are going to shuffle their hands, put it at the bottom of their deck. So everything that was in Israel's hand, now at the bottom, Israel's going to draw 4 cards. Makani's drawing 5 because he initiated that Marnie.
And going to be looking for a way to get the Empoleon. We saw him debating just taking the Empoleon right away, but wanted to, in addition to getting that into the active spot, try to disrupt Israel with that Marnie. Let's see off of these 5, can he find an Ultra Ball or Quick Ball?
Ooh, and we're going to see it. Quick Ball is at least in hand. There's also an Espeon V, I see, a Boss's Order.
Yep, and Espeon V will come down. That is a Pokemon that can do a decent amount of damage as well. But as opposed to getting the Empoleon in the active, we're going to see Makani play it a little slower here. Just go with the Trinity Charge, put some energy cards into play, and try to set up for an attack on the next turn. Could have still quick-balled for the Empoleon and put the energies maybe on that, or at least put a basic water on that potentially, but instead will just try to spread these energies out. Let's see which ones he goes for.
Yeah, of course, the energies only being able to go on V Pokemon, but that is the entire bench here for Makani, so you can place them wherever you want, essentially, in this case. So Makani putting, here we go, a Psychic and Electric Energy onto that Espeon V and 1 water onto the Lumineon V as well.
Yeah, so Lumineon could come up and be an attacker at some point, but Israel is probably breathing a sigh of relief here, seeing no Empoleon in the active on Makani's side, is just going to start churning through the deck here, does find the Colress, and gets rid of Battle VIP Pass.
Easy decision there. Battle VIP hitting the Lost Zone, so stacking that Lost Zone up, now 5 cards in the Lost Zone, and then having this Colress is huge as well, especially if Israel didn't have that great of cards in hand from that Marnie that Makani initiated as well. So this is giant, putting 2 more, I believe that was a Metal Energy and a Kramer into the Lost Zone there.
So that is that magic number 7, but Israel is lacking the Gudra V-Star at this point. Let's see if he can dig a little bit more, is really hoping to find it. I don't see it there, though.
Yep, that is what is needed here for this turn, a V-Star and a Mirage Gate.
Yeah, it doesn't even have that either.
Yeah, I was about to say, I didn't think I saw one in hand, so Israel just lacking a lot of cards here, and that is definitely not a position you want to be in, but we see another flower selecting. What are we going to get? An Escape Rope and a Scoop Up Net, both pivoting options here, but choosing that Scoop Up Net to keep in hand.
Looks like it'll just be a Temple of Sinnoh coming down, trying to slow down Makani as much as he can. Energy attached to the Gudra and the attachment of the big Parasol as well.
Yep, so that double turbo goes down. Well, it's all special energy attached, provide just 1 colorless, so it kind of gets rid of the effect of special energies and is very, very pivotal, especially in certain matchups like that use special energy, really.
Yeah, and this is a great spot to try to slow down that double turbo energy, try to limit Makani's option as the Arceus player. Now, of course, Makani, if he's able to find an Arceus V-Star, would just be able to go get the stadium and the energy necessary to at least launch off an attack. But with no Gudra V-Star coming down on Israel's side, I wonder if there's an opening for Makani to try to do what he did in Game 1, get some damage on that and force that Moisture Star a little earlier than maybe Israel would like to utilize it.
Yeah, most definitely. You want to get as many damage counters down as possible against this Gudra deck because you are suffering from so much reduction there on Israel's side. So definitely getting some early attacks down is huge, so you can take the lead a little bit. And we are going to see that Pumpkin Pit here from little Pumpkaboo getting rid of that Temple of Sinnoh, so bumping it. That is also pretty big here for Makani.
Yeah, this is a great use of this card. A lot of times in these Arceus decks, you feel like it's going to be utilized to get rid of a path to the peak.
Yeah.
But yeah, it works out just fine in this spot. Temple of Sinnoh was also hurting you just as much, it feels like, in this spot. So get that Pumpkaboo down, get rid of that Temple, and a Marnie will be played as well.
Yeah, so we are seeing that Marnie here. We do see the Arceus V-Star come out as well. There is, of course, 2 double turbo energy attached to the Arceus V-Star, so we are going to see, even unfortunately for Makani, even more reduction in damage because it's going to be minus 40 now from those 2 double turbos. But at least there's more energy out. There's more attackers on the board here, so there's options. And there's Charon's Care as well in deck, potentially, for later on.
Yes, the Hyper Potions as well. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many
huge
ways that this deck can interact with the double turbo energies. And Israel drawing into 2 Colress's Experiment off of that Marnie. So we'll have plenty of options here. Does draw an energy card. The only piece Israel is missing to launch an attack here is that Hisuian Gudra V-Star.
V-Star. And no way to search it out, too. We're going to need to see the Colress come in clutch here for Israel in this matchup. So that is going to be super exciting to see. But shuffling up the deck here, and so many cards in hand, too. So we're going to see the sequencing here. But it's going to be the Colress. Let's see if we can see it.
Needs that Gudra V-Star and
is
able to find it.
Nice.
Going to keep that Temple of Sinnoh as well. Does have to lose a Mirage Gate. Big Parasol going down. Not too big of a deal, though. Don't mind losing that. And there is that Gudra coming down, rolling iron, ready to get this game rolling on Israel's side.
Nice chip. You love to see it. Rolling Iron, 200 damage here. Now we're over to Makani's side.
Now Makani would love to find a way to remove this stadium or get damage off of this Arceus, which he is able to do right there in the hand with Sharon's Care.
Yep, Tran coming in clutch here from Makani as well. So now just choosing who to promote into the active position after just scooping up that Arceus V-Star, as well as all cards attached. So those double turbos going back into the hand as well from that Arceus V-Star. One coming back down for the attachment for turn, back onto the Arceus V that was re-benched there.
Yep.
And now we're just seeing this Espeon VMAX now come into play here.
Yep, deals 60 damage for each energy on your opponent's side of the field, attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. So that's 180, of course, minus 80, thanks to Rolling Iron. So 100 damage being placed onto this Goodra, but that is going to be the opening for Israel to use that Moisture Star V-Star power.
Yep, and we'll see if that's what Israel decides to do. Of course, as we said before, there is a Hisuian Goodra V still in the prize cards. So this Goodra V-Star is so important here for Israel to stay in play as much or as long as possible to be able to get off as many attacks, stack all those damage counters, clean things up with Cramorant as well on the back end, and be able to take a 1-1 here in this matchup.
The math works out pretty nicely for Israel. A 200 damage attack here from the Hisuian Goodra would lead to Cramorant KOing the Espeon next turn. That's 3 prize cards there as well. And we do see Israel was valuing the Ordinary Rod there, probably knowing that that Goodra V is in the prize card, so he wants to be able to guarantee a way if this active goes down to get it back.
Yeah, that's definitely big. That was kind of the downfall of the last match that we just saw. So being able to have outs for that is huge, but we're just going to see this continuous Rolling Iron, the Moisture Star, not yet being activated on Israel's side. Back over to Makani here, of course, being able to re-evolve into that Arceus V-Star that was scooped up last turn. And now we are going to see that Starbirth from that Arceus V-Star, searching out any 2 cards from the deck. And of course, you don't have to reveal those either to your opponent. So it's a secret, but usually it's 2 cards that you're probably about to use anyway.
Yeah, and I like this play a lot from Makani. He's holding on to a Research in hand, and off of this Starbirth utilizes is going to grab the Stadium card and the Hyper Potion. We know he's holding on to Double Turbo in hand, so we can see the replacement of the Stadium, attach the Double Turbo, and Hyper Potion to heal this active Espeon so that it is no longer going to be in range of a Cramorant coming up and KOing it.
Yeah, that is definitely some top-level plays here from our players, if that is about to happen here. But we are going to first see a Quick Ball. Discarding, looks like tough decision here on Makani's side, deciding, do I discard this Marnie? And that is exactly what's going to happen, though. Discarding the Marnie to the Quick Ball, allowing Makani to search out another basic Pokemon from the deck, choosing to draw out that Empoleon V now. We saw it played so early in the last game, but now it's coming out a little bit later, but still can be very beneficial to this matchup. One of probably the most beneficial cards.
Yeah, especially in combination with the Marnie, right?
Yep.
Especially in against Israel's deck, who is not utilizing a Rangaroo, which is something we've seen from so many players in their Lost Zone engine decks.
Yeah, so we did see that Collapse Stadium come into play. Of course, both players can only have 4 Pokemon on their bench now because of that Stadium card. And then we did see the Hyper Potion for the healing effect on that Espeon VMAX, and now we are back over onto Israel's side.
Yeah, and Israel doing exactly what he wants to, using that Moisture Star V-Star power, getting all of those dice off of that Hisuian
Wipe
Goodra,
that out real quick.
And we're basically starting over on Israel's side.
Yeah, definitely something you're going to have to work through if you're going against a Goodra deck, so nothing that Makani has not already accounted for, I'm sure, but still not a situation you want to be seeing, because now you're back on the uphill grind of trying to knock out this Goodra. But we are going to see a professor's research there, to draw into a fresh 7 cards here on Makani's side after that Rolling Iron from Israel. So we'll see what Makani decides to do on this turn here.
Yeah, it does have some options. Has Air Balloon and Hyper Potion in hand. So we could see this active Arceus get healed and could move it to the bench. Just swing with the Espeon. Once again, it's the thing in your deck that's going to be doing the most damage. Also did draw an energy card, so could prep an energy onto the Empoleon potentially if he wants to. Maybe go into that off of a Marnie later on.
Yeah, so really both of these players' decks kind of are following a very similar strategy, just with very different Pokemon. So
Sure.
just trying to outlast each other through all of these damage counters. Of course, Israel's Gudra being able to reduce so much damage coming from Makani's point of view, and Makani being able to heal things, get things out, it's kind of very similar play styles here for both of these decks.
Makani actually wanted to bench the Arceus V he just grabbed, but is unable to thanks to his own collapsed stadium. So we'll just attach the capture energy, and we're actually going to just see the swing into the active. And with this Empoleon on the bench, things are a little awkward actually for Makani, because he's got 2 water energies in his deck, and both of them are in play. One on the Espeon, one on Lumineon. So that means that this Empoleon is really not going to be able to be an attacker unless this Lumineon gets shuffled back into the deck with an Aqua return.
Yep, and we are going to see some more prize cards being taken here, this time on Israel's side, taking out that Arceus V-Star over on Makani's side with that Rolling Iron.
So I think Makani's strategy here is probably just going to be swing through this Gudra, do as much you can.
Damage.
He's probably grasped at this point. Israel is not playing much in the way of healing. No, we haven't seen any hyper potions. There's been nothing like that on Israel's side. So I think if you're playing to that, you're just trying to get as much damage in play, try to set up for the knockout on this Gudra and make it as hard as possible for Israel to respond. And we still have not seen the other Hisuian Gudra V on Israel's side, of course, because it is in the prizes. So Makani is going to be able to play with that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely already having that knowledge for sure. Because, I mean, if you're playing Gudra, you want to set up a Gudra on the bench as soon as you possibly can to have an alternate attacker there if your other Gudra goes down. So having to heavily rely on those Cramorants, I'm sure Makani is definitely working around that now. We are seeing the evolution into that Arceus V-Star on the bench. We're going to see the double Turbo Energy as well come down here. And Makani also needs some alternate attackers happening here. Choosing to switch into the Empoleon V here.
Yeah, I think Makani's just trying to burn some cards out of the hand. Will attach to the Arceus. He does have the Hyper Potion in hand, so was maybe debating trying to heal the Espeon, but instead will just choose to power up another attacker and play the research.
Yeah, I think that is pretty crucial here potentially for Makani. So we did see that Hyper Potion hit the discard from that Professor's Research into a fresh 7 cards, straight into an Ultra Ball as well, discarding 2 cards. This is going to be the VMAX and a Yveltal as well, and drawing out any Pokemon from the deck, swinging back with that Espeon VMAX, and it is going to take the knockout here on that Hisuian Gudra V-Star. Makani being able to work through multiple turns, a Moisture Star, and finally take those 2 prize cards.
Yeah, it was like a 5-hit KO or something like that, thanks to the Moisture Star. Gudra is so tough to deal with. Now Israel will play the Ordinary Rod and put the Gudra back and can grab it right back out with the Capture Energy. What a good combo.
Yeah, definitely. That is Ordinary Rod coming in clutch here this time for Israel. Having to play around the Hisuian Gudra being prized both of these matches now, but still being able to do that. So the Gudra V is going to come right back out, get lined up as soon as possible. We're seeing more flower selectings here. Marnie's going to hit the Lost Zone. Scoop up net into the Cramorant. As we've said multiple times before, Cramorant is kind of your cleanup crew. Well, it can be your initial damage as well, but definitely also a cleanup crew here to get those damage counters you need and take those knockouts. Especially on a 3-prize Pokemon chip, that'd be huge.
Israel now would only need 1 more prize to clean this game up, and that's a little bit awkward of a hand to draw into. 3 energy and the Mirage Gate.
Oh no.
And I don't think there's, he drew into the 3 metal energies, so is unable to accelerate off the Mirage Gate.
I mean, yeah, at least you can manually attach from hand, but yeah, that's not what you want to see. You want to see, because you do have to take out 2 different basic energy cards with that Mirage Gate. So if they're in hand,
we're coming down to it here.
Deck. We are definitely coming down to it. We're going to see that huge knockout there on Israel's side, taking 3 prize cards over there on that Espeon VMAX, and now we're back onto Makani's side here.
Yeah, we do need Israel to take 1 more prize card. Espeon is a VMAX, so we'll get word down to the table, and we'll get Israel to take just that 1 more prize here in just a second.
Oh, yeah. Was there only 2 taken?
Yeah, I think he did only take 2. Right, yeah, because he knocked out an Arceus V-Star, And then he only took 2 prizes on the Espeon, so he just needs to take 1 more. Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. All right, cool. So we did get that sorted out. So down
and the
to
last
1.
prize.
Yeah, it's the Gudra. No.
Not going to matter at this point.
Yeah,
He was
that's true.
able to get it back, but it's just kind of funny that that's how it worked out.
I know, right? Oh, my goodness. Well, still in a pretty good spot here, only having to take 1 more prize card on Israel's side.
And I think Makani just passed as well, so this is a big opening for Israel. Does have the Colress and is able to find that Hisuian Gudra V-Star.
Yeah, that's huge. So Colress also, again, coming in clutch with the Colress here for Israel's deck. Getting that V-Star, we are going to, of course, see the evolution. Metal Energy's already in hand. Manual attach for the turn. Retreating out of that Cramorant into the Hisuian Gudra V-Star. And Makani's being faced with another wall of goo, Chip.
And this is where things get tough for Makani. You were able to deal with 1 Gudra V-Star, but getting through this second Gudra is going to be tough. And with Israel only at 1 prize card remaining, you can't afford another 3-hit KO, which is really Makani's only other option. There's 3 prize cards remaining on his side, so Boss can take a prize, and then Boss could take another prize, but you're still going to have to deal with this Gudra at some point.
Yeah, the Gudra with the consistent damage and just being too tough to get through with your own damage is just very difficult. Makani trying to decide here what to do.
Yeah, I did play the Boss on the Cramorant, but there's no Pokemon in play that can attack. There's no energies to attack. There's, yeah, I think we've got our judge stepping away from the table here. Looks like we're just going to get something checked out and looked at.
Yeah, maybe something happened at the table. But yeah, they're really what happened in this game, Chip? How did we get to this point? It feels like things were just flowing and flowing, and then things just started kind of coming to a halt here from Makani. There's some kind of weird energy attachments here and there, but here we go. That is going to be the game here. Going to Israel, Sosa now bringing us to a 1-1 in this matchup. Israel's so excited, dropping a card there.
Just under 7 minutes, about 6 minutes remaining in this one, so it's really looking like this is likely going to end in a tie, unfortunately for both of these players. Now, a tie is not bad. You still do come away with 1 match point, where if you get a win, you get 3 match points. So you still at least come away with something, but both of these players, you know, starting 2-0, they're really hoping to get some good momentum moving forward in this event, and taking a tie here in round 3 really does slow things down for you, just as far as your tournament run is concerned.
Absolutely. I know ties are a bit of a frustrating thing sometimes to see on stream. People want to see winners here most of the time, Chip, but being able to feature both of these decks, I think, is a huge win for us, because these are very unique decks. Seeing them played, seeing the synergies between these both players is really cool.
And hey, it's not a tie just yet. There's 5 minutes left in the round. We could see something crazy happen, but usually if a game like this with 2 decks that are constructed in this way, if a game like this ends in 5 minutes, it's usually because one of the 2 players got a little unlucky. Usually you only had 1 Pokemon and your opponent's able to knock it out on turn 2. You just kind of didn't have an option. So we never want to see games end like that, but I think either of these players in a spot like this would be happy to steal a win here if they could.
You know, Chip, I'm going to be the evil one here and say, sometimes it's kind of hype, you know? Sometimes I like seeing things end like that just because it's like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it is sad, definitely, for the player on the receiving end of that, for sure. But yeah, I mean, we've seen that time and time again, Chip. I feel like we've had to cast so many of those situations. So there really is no telling what can happen here. But yeah, both of these decks are very much long con decks, that is for sure.
We're going to get things shuffled up just under 5 minutes now, getting down to 4. Players will draw those opening hands of 7 cards. Try to find something to start. Gotta imagine Makani will have chosen to go first in this game. Because going first is a pretty good advantage. Let's see those prize cards. Let's see if Israel can avoid prizing a Gudra, which he has successfully done. But Makani does prize the Empoleon and a basic water energy.
I was actually thinking from the last turn, as we jump into this next game here between our 1-1 opponents, Makani and Israel, but Makani used Empoleon very early in our game 1 that we saw. So I was wondering, in this game 3 if Makani was going to go back into that strategy because it paid off so much, but now it's in the prize cards.
Yeah, let's look at Makani's face here when he realizes as this quick ball is being played that there is no Empoleon. He had the perfect hand for it as well because there's an air balloon, so he would have just been able to retreat into it right away. Unfortunately, though, we'll just have to grab the Aerodactyl.
Yep, and that would definitely be huge. Of course, you still would need to figure out how to get to the win condition as well with such a, so not enough time really on the clock, but still being able to delay your opponent as much as possible is always huge in these games.
Ultra Ball discarding 2. Now we'll probably search out that Crobat, try to fill the hand up. I think at minimum, Makani would like to get an energy attachment this turn. Makani does also play 1 Hisuian Heavy Ball, so there is still possibility for the Empoleon to come into the active turn 1 here.
Ooh, that is true. We saw the Hisuian Heavy Ball in the first game that we saw from Makani, so that is very true, Chip. We will see what is going to be drawn into off of this Crobat. I believe it's only 1 card in hand right now. Oh, maybe 2? Well, now the Crobat is that second card, so we're going to see it come down here, draw up to 6 cards in the hand for Makani.
Oh, and it does find the Hisuian Heavy Ball.
Let's go.
What a hit from Makani.
And there's only 1 in deck, too, right?
One single Hisuian Heavy Ball, and he's able to get out the Empoleon. That is massive. Makani must be nice to be you, my friend.
Yeah, looking at the luck today here. So that Empoleon is going to come out here for this turn 1. Of course, the Heavy Ball replacing it in the prize cards. So there's still 6 prize cards over there from Makani. But now that Penguin is hitting the bench.
Now the question here, where does Makani put the energy? Do you attach to Arceus or do you attach to the Empoleon and hope to find your 1 water energy next turn? And I think that's totally fine since you've got Arceus V-Star in hand.
Yeah, I feel like I would probably, I don't know, I feel like I'd want to delay as much as possible, but it's going to come down onto that Arceus V, the double turbo energy there for Makani, the attachment for turn. Now back over onto Israel's side here. Israel trying to line up as many cards as possible into hand and also into that lost zone as well. And a great way to start that off is, of course, this Colress's Experiment. So 3 cards are going to go to the hand, 2 into the lost zone.
This is the first game so far, though, from Israel. We have not seen the turn 1 Battle VIP pass, and he was unable to find it here. So that's going to be a bunch of cards that are just unusable in his deck through the rest of this one.
Yeah, that's always the unfortunate part of that card. You can only utilize it on your first turn, and then it's kind of a dead card. Luckily for Lost Zone decks, it's an easy choice to go into Lost Zone. So there is that utility, but you're missing out on so much of that early game utility there as well, with those flower selectings being able to be popped off, Cramorant coming down, Radiant Greninja, so many things being able to happen. But we're not going to see that for Israel. We are back over onto Makani's side here. Now, 4 Pokemon on the bench of Empoleon V, of course, still being in the active, shutting down those abilities still. So there's that, but we did just see the pass here. Another Colress from Israel.
Really interesting. So Makani's going to play it a little slow here with the ability to have used the Arceus if he wanted to, but is the fact that Israel put that Temple of Sinnoh in play, I think, kind of threw a wrench into all of Makani's potential plans. Maybe he could have gone switch plus attach and then loaded up the Empoleon. You're taking the Comfey out of play, so you don't really mind as much giving up the fact that Empoleon is in the active spot.
Yep, I mean, Makani still does have the ability to use that V-Star power, the Star Birth as well, so there is some cards that could be drawn out here for Makani, but we're just going to see the passover. Of course, Israel not being able to utilize those flower selectings because of that Empoleon V, and now we are back over to Makani, of course, popping off that Star Birth.
And we might see a combination of Marnie plus Switch here off of this Star Birth. Also does need a Stadium or that Pumpkaboo, but it looks like time has been called and these players recognize the situation. They know that neither of them is going to be able to come away with the victory here in the +3 turns, so looks like we're just going to call it a tie, and both of these players will move to a 2-0-1 record.
Absolutely, definitely still a great spot to be in so early in the day. Of course, this was our first match that we streamed our Swiss round 3, so both these players starting out great, giving us a great show as well with those super unique decks. Chip, did you expect either of those decks to come and make a showing today?
Not a big showing. I mean, I knew people would probably play both of them in some capacity, but the fact that, you know, 2 great players chose to pick them up, we were able to get them on here in round number 3 is always really exciting to see. I think people get a little tired of just watching Lugia and Mew, and even maybe Lost Box is getting to that point a little bit.
True.
We've seen it so much. So anytime we get an opportunity to feature 2 really well-known and good players playing more unique decks, we're going to jump at that opportunity for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was an awesome show for sure. You know, Chip, when you were saying, oh, we're down to like, 7 minutes, I was like, wow, time has been flying in this match. I wasn't even looking at the timer there. I was just so focused on this match and the intricacies that we saw throughout that gameplay. It was awesome.
And we saw both of these players really having to kind of adjust on the fly, it feels like, because I don't think either of them really tested the other matchup, right? They probably spent all their time working on the Lugia matchup, maybe making sure they had a game plan against Mew in the Lost Box, but Makani definitely wasn't thinking about Gudra, and I have to think that Israel was probably not very likely thinking about Arceus flying Pikachu Espeon when he was game planning this deck.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Gudra is a deck, of course we saw it take the win at Salt Lake City. Of course, that was a very, very different build of the deck. But also on Makani's side, these Arc toolbox decks, I feel like people kind of wrote them off as well. They're like, oh, Arc decks, they're not really going to be able to